And we're live.
All right. Super cool. Let me just wait for my YouTube
So,
here.
welcome to the Living Process live stream. So, Dana and I here are going to be discussing several interesting topics. We have had a packed morning. Coming up, we do have a client meeting about our exciting new project in France, doing a pedestrian bridge between two office buildings. And we're going to launch this discussion today by something that kind of came up interestingly with Dana reminiscing about what professors used to say about Latte Towns, because the blend that I have in the church warden today is Sutliff, Virginia, which I don't know what it's named to buy it online, but I can buy it from a local brick and mortar place in right downtown city of Orange in Orange County. It's actually a wonderful urban place which follows its old urbanism that follows all the new urbanism expressions. However, some people call that a cappuccino town, and they don't like
Yeah.
it. So Dana,
Cappuccino towns are cool. I like cappuccino towns. What do you
how would
think
you
about them?
define I do too. I like them. How would you define a cappuccino town?
I would say I would define a cappuccino town as a village that is
Right.
somewhat like somewhat away from it's away from downtown. It's not in what was that? It's not in a rural town. It's definitely not rural, but it could be an urban sprawl, and
It could be within
it's
it. Yes,
it
oftentimes it
could
is. It
it
has the
could be within an
typology
urban
of what
sprawl.
you used to call a streetcar suburb.
Yeah,
It's a
and
little
basically
it's a little pocket of density with some apartments right near it, but houses a short walk away.
exactly. And so basically, a cappuccino town is a place where you'll find not really many pubs, not many nightclubs, but you'll find like homes and like maybe nowadays you'll find like a yoga studio and like a shopping mall or a bookstore and little cafes
A pet
and
boutique usually.
pet boutique. Yeah, some type of pet boutique or like little baby shops where you can buy like cute little baby clothes.
A vintage store, a record shop.
Yeah, vintage record shop. Exactly, exactly. And so architecture professors really dislike the idea of cappuccino towns. They really hate it because I don't know, they want
At
this
least the
sort of
ones that
like
you talked to.
the ones that I've spoken to, yeah, the ones that I knew from Los Angeles, they hated the idea of latte towns. I don't know what type of dystopian future they want, but um, you know, they hate the idea of a latte town, even though nearly all of them, drink lattes and cappuccinos. And one thing that I want to iterate though is that latte town or cappuccino town doesn't mean that it's a town like with a Starbucks in it. That's really a difference
Not
because
necessarily.
having a cafe like a Starbucks or something does not make a town a latte town. What makes a town, I think, a latte town is that there's this feeling of being away from the city where the fun thing to do is to meet at the local cafe versus the fun thing to do meeting at this
At an
like
art
night.
gallery with abstract painting that challenges bourgeois sensibilities.
Yes, exactly. Like, yeah. So like Hollywood wouldn't there are probably parts of Hollywood that have that feeling of, a little latte town, but it's more like a
It
little
does.
latte
It
part
does,
of.
specifically Melrose, West LA, and West Hollywood. Yes.
Yeah, and basically latte towns just kind of bring in like hipsters and people who want to work, people who want to mingle, people who don't want to, be in huge cities where they're just, around homeless tents and people partying all day. It's really a nice, quiet type of place where locals go to meet up and socialize and meet each other. And
And and this is the way that townscapes have developed through most of human history, where you have a short walk from where you live and where you work. It's also something that was very much, very many of the towns in the United States were like this between 1900 and 1920. So if the towns where you live have stuff that was built up back then, you can still see what it's like. And a lot of very sad, depressed places have places like that that's kind of abandoned or not very used very much. But then they get revived. And you can contrast this to show how much things have changed. Both changed up to World War II, changed after World War II, and then changed again in the 90s. Is that we were talking about this earlier. You can talk about the Cappuccino town, but then there is also the light beer and the cappuccino and Wi-Fi town, and then there is the light beer and television suburb, which predated it. And you were saying that these professors don't hate that suburb, but they would never live there. Somehow they want that to ghettoize those people.
Well, yeah, I feel like most professors they prefer modern architecture, of course, but not just modern. Like they prefer stuff that's very Psyarch or Psyduck, joke that we made
Which the rest
earlier.
of the world outside of LA County doesn't necessarily know what that is. It's
Yeah,
Psyduck.
Psyduck.
Hey duck.
Hey duck. Yeah.
But you can
So
just go ahead and explain for people who don't know.
so basically, Psyarch is an architecture school where they create modern sort of architecture that's very swoopy and pointy and funky and very alien, and it's very design morphine, which is cool. Like they complement each other a lot. But the problem is that it's very difficult for Psyarch to shift into pleasant spaces. So it's very Zaha Hadid,
And
but
these
again,
people, these people even have a value system that they believe that designing pleasant spaces, they don't want to design pleasant. They think it's a bad idea. They've been taught to design places that interrogate your sensibilities,
yeah,
right?
places that, yeah, I've had professors at my university who, I'm just gonna go out and say, like, I'm not gonna say who this was, but she was in her 20s, like she was about 21 years old, and her father was a billionaire. So that's a huge difference between the professors in France and the professors in Los Angeles for architecture, where the
I remember
professors,
these seminars. I was watching.
yeah. So basically, the curriculum, it's so different because the professors that they choose in the universities in Los Angeles are all based on who you know and how much money you have, and if you went to the school or not. Whereas here in France, to be a professor in the university has nothing to do if you went to the school or how much money your daddy has, but it depends on if you yourself are one of the greatest, most notable architects in the country. So that's what's different about it. And so basically, my professor, who was, her father happened to be a multi-billionaire owning one of the, largest architecture firms in the country. That wouldn't make her the best architect and it wouldn't make her father the best, but the people who started the company generations ago. And I'm not saying that the designs are very good anyway, but what I'm saying is that the curriculum was much different than the curriculum that you would see here in France. For instance, here in France, the curriculum is very based on sustainability and restoration, restoring the beautiful ancient architecture that we have, and in designing spaces that relate to classical architecture of the vernacular spaces, or creating spaces that are very complementary to the surroundings, right? And first of all, because Los Angeles doesn't really have many historical landmarks that are that sort of lay a foundation for the context. You're kind of left with creating your own kind of context. And
Well, or so that's what they want you to think. In fact, there's
exactly.
just down the street here, just down the street at the San Gabriel Mission, there is a close to a 300-year-old building, a 250-year-old building. And so mission style is something that has been around for a considerable time here, as long as anything else in the United States. And certainly art in Los Angeles, like New York in its own way, like Paris in its own way, has contributed greatly to beautiful. There's more. I've been in lots of places. I've been in places with Art Deco. There is a higher amount of good, beautiful Art Deco in this county than anywhere else I've been in the world. And that's a wonderful thing, which, for whatever reason, a lot of the design establishment people would wish you to not acknowledge, because then one is free to play, which is what they always wanted to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really interesting because I'm watching the students work here in France, and I'm just like blown away like at how beautiful their designs are and how just rich in culture and appreciation they have for like creating beautiful spaces. And meanwhile, my professor in my university, she had instructed us to dig through the trash can and find garbage, like literal garbage, and just pick up anything, just pick up whatever you want. One kid brought an empty toothpaste container and used Q-tips or something. Some people had banana peels, and I had pistachio shells or whatever. And basically this goes into a whole nother level of things. This is again, these are the type of people that hate cappuccino towns, because let's go back into the reason is because of this wokeism idea and not being able to enjoy things that are pleasant.
That's the root of it.
Yeah.
That's the root of it. Wokeism is just kind of layered on top as an excuse to give jobs to people
Exactly.
That's my theory.
Because it's ironic because in the class we were instructed to find all these nasty stuff, and so when students were creating things, the professor who was very young, she was a young girl, and she would say, she said things like, oh yeah, I love to do architectural designs for my daddy's company when I put in some headphones and listen to dubstep and just model and
by the
crazy.
way, for some people might actually not know what dubstep is, but that's the kind of music that goes and it sounds like robots being pulled apart and breaking.
It sounds more like robots farting with irritable bowel syndrome than it does sounding like robots breaking. Robots breaking could sound interesting.
I say, Terrence, your robot needs a tune-up. But, it's the new dubstep, Philip.
Yeah.
Now I dislike dubstep even more, Dana. You've accomplished this. I didn't think it was possible.
Hey, you know what? I love modern music. Like I love Sundial Ion, which is like futuristic music, but it's not dubstep. Dubstep goes to a level.
You've been listening to some good Bjork lately. A lot of the dubstep, they're trying to imitate Bjork and doing it badly. Something like Human Behavior or Hunter on Homogenic has that kind of electronic futuristic feel, but it has a naturalness to it. And along those lines, we can start talking about that's like a musical structure preserving transformation. We can get into that later with our form language stuff. Perhaps now we can talk a bit about this new method that you have discovered with AI about not sinking time into the technology, that the AI lets us do wonderful things that takes time away from the technical bits and lets us focus on making great decisions for clients. I think this is very exciting. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah. So aside from all that wonky school stuff, whatever, let's go back to the usefulness of today's modern time. So I want to go ahead and thank these amazing companies that have put out some really incredible stuff, and talk about some of these things that we've been doing. So right now we have a project. We're designing a bridge that is connecting two buildings.
Pedestrian bridge, yes.
Yes, exactly. And so we're going to be creating this bridge. And so for the panels of these bridge, we're using, form language in a way where we're looking at examples of stuff, but we're also playing with our own type of form language. And we're using, part of the process is we're using this application for mandalas.
Yes, for that creates radial and bilateral symmetry and lets you collaborate on it nicely. For those of you who are not aware of form language, that is a specific technique of iterative I can sound real fancy, iterative morphological gestation of the articulation of the design. But that's it. A form language is a technique developed by Christopher Alexander and his colleagues when he was at UC Berkeley, which he developed through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, released in a book called The Nature of Order. Many more people are familiar with pattern language. You can find all types of stuff about pattern language. And pattern language is what you do at the beginning, talking with the clients to get the programming down, to think about how the space is used, and to diagram large scale to small scale things generally. When you get to the specific questions of what size and shape things are, which is because we're specifying how the glazing and the mullions are going to work on this bridge, that's when you're designing the shape and the color, and you go through this process of form language. And you start from, as Frank Lloyd Wright said, the generals to particulars. And you go through I won't get into it now, but the structure preserving transformations. There are different qualities and hallmarks, not elements that you combine, but things that you notice when you're shaping something in the right way, which is to bring about this vibrancy, this beauty, this increased life to it, that's what we always do. And it's so wonderful.
Yeah, David, everything you just said, I agree. I concur with everything you just said.
Cool.
Anyway, so the Mandala app, we're going to be putting a link down below for the Mandala app. The great thing about this is that you're able to send the link to your team members, and then you guys have a collaborative a collaborative meeting on creating these like different mandalas, and then you can go ahead and save the image, whatever. And so we're going to be using that as well as some other techniques, as well as image generative AI to also create inspiration for our needs. And in the line of AI, let's now talk about our amazing find. This is a revolutionary breakthrough, you guys. So we're going to put a link down below as well of this next application. It is for creating 3D models from an image. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you guys can take a look at what I have here, what we have. So, don't look at my screen. That is so awkward. Oh my goodness, what is happening? Okay, so we've got the Mandala app here. You could see, creating these awesome mandala type things, right? And you just go ahead and share the situation, whatever. You can, create more dividers in it. Anyway, so that's for that application. And then here, let me just, put this in a larger thing so you could see the full thing here. And then this is Meshi. So this is Mandala GABA, and then here's Meshi. This is amazing, you guys. Just take a look at this. Just take a look at this. So I had uploaded this image I had uploaded this image of this sofa, this, Baroque sofa, and it generated this incredible sofa right here, this three-dimensional sofa that I was able to put into Revit. And so I will, on our Revit lesson coming up next week, I'll show you how to edit that so that you can change the size in a snap instead of, trying to figure out ways, because it doesn't come to size. That's the one default.
One of the things that this is also glorious for is that you've discovered this just as we're opening a new phase on designing the landscape and redoing some of the facade work on the houses for the larger part of our Riverside project.
Yes, definitely.
Where we can get very accurate, very good representations of all the plants.
Exactly.
Rapidly.
Exactly. And so here you have object, whatever, and I'm using the free version. I don't know how many I'm using the free plan. I don't know how long it's gonna let me use that, but nonetheless, the pro version is $20 a month. If you go monthly, it's not that bad. If you're an architect, you're using this all the time, it's brilliant. It really is. And you can, download as many of these as you want within the with the amount of credits that you have. And then the results that you get is, the result that you get is something like this. Let's go ahead and show you Furbies. So the result that you get is this is a rendering in Revit, and that's quite incredible.
Yeah, that's actually a California invention. Oh, yeah. That's California. Oh. And same thing for the.
So David, you can go ahead and mute yourself.
California, yes. See Spider-Man do stuff.
Okay, so awesome. So yeah, basically like that. And so anyway, so those are the applications. I'm going to go ahead and put the links down below where you can get those. But those are huge breakthroughs. Those are giant breakthroughs in our today's technology. And I just want to give a big shout out to those companies. Thank you so much for having these awesome these awesome programs that we can use for our process. Hopefully in the future we can maybe get some sponsorship. But yes, so thank you so much. And when David's ready, we'll talk a little bit more about.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about Cappuccino Towns now that we've talked about some really interesting stuff that we're doing. Last thing I have to say. Go ahead.
I think we've covered Cappuccino Towns fairly well. I think that why don't we talk about unless you have something else, I think we can talk about how AI integrates into process. There is, I think, a risk. AI is not all good or all bad, like any tool. AI can integrate into a workflow properly, or AI can be something that is done as a distraction. And back when I actually have a peer review publication, believe it or not. It's called I forget exactly what it's called. But
Method Shapes Morphology.
Thank you, Dana. I can't even remember the name of my own book. Thank you. Method Shapes. Dana's great for this. So yes, it's called Method Shapes Morphology. And I wrote this. I wrote this when I was actually in Boston, preparing to go to Italy. I was participating it with a guy who later became my original colleague in Living Process. He has since moved on, but when we started the company in Iowa, then I met Dana online because she found the podcast, and then we were like, "Oh, it's great working together. There's lots of things that we need to do in Pasadena." That's how that happened. It's been excellent. So when I was actually teaching classes in Italy, Brian was working with me, and he helped on this case study about, do the tools you use change the outcome of what you do in an appreciable way? Can you somehow measure that? And so we tried to test it out by saying, let's try to do a similar thing in different ways using direct modeling with clay, design with pen and paper, and design with a computer.
Yeah.
This was 2017. The AI wasn't available like it is now. And as we found out, yes, very compelling stuff. Interestingly, we found that if you're making something, this shouldn't come as a shock, but it is kind of a shocking process. The conclusions were, when you're making something for the physical world, you're making a house that people live in, you're making a tile that people have physically, you're making a kind of sculptural 3D relief thing. When you're doing that, you're going to get the best results by being able to refer to the physical thing. That there's a risk when you use the computer, and it's especially true with the computer, that when you present yourself with so many options, there's something called configuration space. That's the conceptual space where you look at all your design choices. There is a very large amount of impossible options. Smaller than that is the amount of good and bad options together. The amount of bad options is pretty big. Then you get to the amount of good options, and then you get to the amount of the several of them which are kind of the best options. Those become very clear and obvious when you're dealing with things in the physical world. This is why Dana and I have done things like, as much as we can, on-site mock-ups. And you can remember when we were doing that home expansion with the garage in the backyard, we were doing stake and string and looking at the building and stuff that seemed really a tough question, even impossible to figure out. It was suddenly clearly obvious what was the better choice when we were there. That's why we do those things in mock-ups as much as we can. Now, AI presents which way Western man. Now, of course, AI can help distract you with dozens and dozens and dozens of options, and you can iterate, off into la la land. Or you can use AI in a focused way to say, have your on-site mock-ups, and then tell the AI, oh, what would that look like if we filled it in like this? You can have the AI be a dialogue with your in-person stuff as in a way to focus things. And I think that presents a tremendous opportunity to improve things, and especially with the way that Dana just showed about this modeling, that you sink less time into looking for a model, downloading a model, getting some kind of weird standard model, but you can model in stuff rapidly, maybe that you took as a photo from the on-site. And that's, go ahead, Dana.
Well, the reason that this is so important is because exactly like you were saying, this is how we are going to now take us back into classical architecture, because when the architects of the past were creating designs, they were hand drawing, which meant that they had freedom to illustrate all their desires, and they were the most brilliant of us who were able to do that because they had to have incredible drawing skills. They had to be artists.
And at the same time, they either were engineers or had sitting literally next to them in the atelier the engineer for whom they could say, is this possible? Are we going to build this? Will gravity destroy this? Right?
Yeah, exactly. And then
so they kept it focused.
Exactly. And then so now what happened is then we moved into AutoCAD, which then made it still relatively the same, because there wasn't any type of restrictions in terms of drawing. It was a drawing tool, but when it came to 3D modeling, once we got into 3D modeling, it became, wow, there's no way I can create that column, that Corinthian column. I could do it with drawing, I could do it on AutoCAD, but I cannot do it in 3D. It's too difficult. They didn't know how to do it.
And there were also industrial restrictions. It became expensive. This is the thing. Not only is it the AI that helps us get back to this detailing, but the idea that you can have something 3D milled or 3D printed without increasing the cost.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. Now you can take a picture of dear David here, put it into AI, 3D model, make David into a 3D model, and then have him printed into a sculpture and have a sculpture of David.
Yes.
And so now what we're able to do is now we're able to create designs like we in 3D like we weren't able to do. And the downside of this is that because it's going to be so accessible, really anybody and their grandma, like somebody's grandma is just going to be like, oh, I want to make a Rococo design, generate Rococo design. And they will have 3D models, Revit files, all the things. And their grandma literally never went to school, never did any of that stuff. Or let's put it in worse conditions, somebody's developer who just wants money, right? But then we got to think about it like this. If the AI is making beautiful stuff, why do we care?
Maybe someone's grandma is talented. But the thing about the type of process that we do is that there's always a kind of awkwardness when you start from the head and make something for the head and then make that to be lived in. That was Corbusier's big problem. And it comes out and you always have the reaction, oh, wait, it doesn't feel the way I thought it would. And people will get disappointed. Now, people are going to continue to be disappointed and feel this sense of alienation if the AI is not done in the proper way. So what happens with our process is that we have this listening dialogue between what the site is saying, what the site's offering up, what it's requiring, what the clients are saying that they would really love to have in their lives. If you think of the image first, you're not having fidelity to what the clients really feel like they want in their lives. You're having a fidelity to the image. And even clients are very easily distracted by an image. And what you want to do, you don't want to chase away what they're thinking of, but you want to get underneath that and kind of say, well, why is that inspiring to you? Aha. And then maybe you use part of that image, maybe you use the whole thing. But then when you come at it from that angle, you have a much, much, much higher chance of discovering, and that's the way I think of it. We're not inventing, we're not proposing, we're not inspiring the design, we're discovering the design, which was the true best thing possible. When you get underneath the image like that into what they're feeling, that brought that about anyways, that gets you much closer to this type of wonderful best result.
Yeah, and also another thing to add is when it comes to interior design. This is the idea of 3D modeling with AI is going to be amazing for 3D modeling because let me tell you this. Usually when you're 3D modeling and you model, you find as many 3D models that you can find of the coolest sofas, of the coolest libraries or whatever, where you try to make your own kind of modification of those, and then you design based on the library that you have. And then after you have these renderings, then you look through the catalogs of what's actually available and what is actually around. Right. And so then you try to match with what is in the stores with what you've created on the 3D.
And everyone in the design world is familiar with this, and then everyone gets frustrated, and the client gets frustrated, and everything that felt inspiring drains out of the project. Just like when you talk with a contractor and a bunch of people, this is going to happen. They're going to have their AI, wonderful, 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 and the contractor is going to look at it and say, sir, ma'am, great. How do you intend to build that? And it's going to be, you have to talk with the dialogue with the contractor and the engineer, or at least the idea of them to begin with, because you have to integrate how it's built from the very beginning. Otherwise, you get this mismatch that Dana's talking about. And I think what Dana's going to be alluding to is that you can use the AI to bring into the design process a very wonderful representation of the sources available at that early point.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely, by the way, using AI for making designs in architecture is not good. You do not want to use AI to create your spaces. I mean, you maybe you can use AI and play with that and have that be part of the iterative process, but do not press generate and then use it on your website and say, look at this floor plan that I
Well,
made.
if people do that,
We're
if
gonna
people-
see it in a
if-
second. We're
if
gonna
pe-
know in a second.
If people do that, then the author of the algorithm is in charge of the design. And probably very few people want that to be the fact, but that's what it is if they're allowing AI to drive the design decisions.
Well, it's not actual designers that are doing that. It's, people in their basement
sure.
who are like, I want to be an architect and I just found this
Well,
AI application and I'm going to click generate, generate, generate. And now I have 5 examples of like, look at my amazing project to like buy.
And there might be perfectly nice people who own homes who have been doing that out of fun and curiosity, who might just want to also talk with us in a happy, positive way. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing is that, yes, you should be generating and having fun with images. My point is that then you don't want to advertise those as something that you designed yourself, because what's going to happen is that it's not just about like, okay, you didn't actually do it.
It's also not very honest.
Well, it should be
labeled as AI generated if it's AI generated.
Well, because what's going to happen is that people are going to know it's AI right away, and then they're going to say,
not all people,
but once somebody says it, everyone's going to know, and everyone's going to be able to point it out. So it's
and
then
there's a sense of disingenuousness that comes out of that. So
yeah, because the problem is that it's not genuine. The problem is that things are going to be off and misaligned, and you're going to have like random hands coming out of somebody's butt, and
Yeah. Well, the AI will get better to solve those things, but I think it's mostly just the human. It's going to be very interesting to see how the human decision process really does get you to the. I'm confident enough in human brains that the human decision process really does have permanent advantages over the automated machine systems.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let me tell you how using AI and 3D models helps, okay? Is that you're not using AI 3D models to generate your architecture. Never, never, never do that. You're using AI to generate your sofa, your stuff, like, your maybe. So what you do is you go through the catalog of the stuff available, of the stuff that the client wants, go through your mood board, find your sofas that inspire you, find the interior design, throughout your process, and then create the 3D model based on the image that is in the catalog. So create the 3D model that is of the catalog of the existing stuff, which means that your 3D model is going to look exactly as what they're going to get that they saw at the store. So they're going to say, oh, that's exactly the sofa that I want, and it looks perfectly in my space. So I'm going to go ahead and, and you just got to make sure that the size is correct. And
and the AI, and like you said, the AI is really, really good for enhancing the dialogue with the client. So they can say, wow, that looks really good in the store, but can I get a better idea of how it would look inside my home? And then bap, boop, boop, beep, bop, borp. And we try to get a better idea. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we're at a good place. It's 11 o'clock. I got to open the gate here at Arroyo, and we have our super awesome client meeting in a half hour, for which we'll prepare. Dana, any final thoughts before we sign off until next week on our live stream?
Well, not much else. If you guys want to, send us a message or a link or whatever, of maybe one of your projects that you have that you'd like us to talk about, maybe if you have some theories on design or ways that AI has been working for you, or if you've been familiar
or not working.
Tell us your problems with AI. Give us your spiel. Tell us your problem. So yeah, tell us all that. As always, leave a like and hit the subscribe, and turn on your notifications, because these messages that we got for you are fun, and they're going to keep getting more fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dana. This is a truly excellent. I really enjoyed what we went over today, and there's going to even be better stuff to come. So thank you, and I'll definitely be, we're going to be talking later soon today.
Okay. Live from living process. Just kidding. Let's not do that.
That's not bad. If you do that, I can't sing that one, but you can do it.
Living process LLC.
That's a pretty good jingle.
94/7.
The one that I can do, Dana. See, this is our fun, silly time now. The one that I can do is Jared, the Galleria of Jewelers, and then also Carpetland USA. Those would get played on the radio in Chicago a lot. Do you know those two ones?
No.
There's whoa, that's Jared, but it's a woman singing very loudly. It always makes me think of Jared Kushner, because like you're standing next to Jared Kushner and there's a lady with a microphone that goes, "Wow, that's Jared." And then there's Carpetland USA is hard to sing, but it's like Carpetland USA.
There you go.
That wasn't very good. I'm not warmed up. You're better at it than I am, Dana.
Carpetland USA, like who
Well,
I love is the
you don't know the
pillow
notes.
What?
What do you know? Do you know the Carpetland USA one?
No, but
Which one do you like?
When you said Carpetland USA, you remind me of the My Pillow guy who I love. I love this guy.
Mike Lindell.
Yeah, I love My Pillow.
He's pretty fun.
Yeah,
he does nice things with business and helping people have nice lives. Yeah, he's pretty a positive guy.
Yeah, I think we should reach out to him. We're gonna reach out to that guy because My
Pillow's okay. We can do a thing.
Okay.
Do you want your own promo code? mypillow.com/Dana.
Oh, that would be fun.
All right. Okay, then.
All right. Anyways, you guys, bye. Thanks, you guys, next week. Actually, probably even before then, if we can get our act together, we can do that for you.